Good morning. My name is Remy Long. I'm Deputy Manager of City of Ann Arbor Parks and Recreation. So I have the great privilege of overseeing the city's two foremost land conservation efforts in the city that are subset programs or divisions of Parks and Rec. One is natural area preservation, which is effectively the stewardship division of Parks and Rec that takes care of our park system's natural areas. And then the other is the open space and parkland preservation program, which is commonly known as the Greenbelt, that leads both the parkland purchase real estate activity within the city limits, as well as a pioneering, innovative, nationally known land preservation program known as the Greenbelt. So I'm going to start off by talking about natural area preservation. So our background, and I'll try and move through this presentation a little bit quickly so we have plenty of time for Q&A, because I can tell there's going to be some good discussion here. So natural area preservation, which hereforth I'll call NAP, was established in 1993 by the voters who approved the Parks Maintenance and Capital Improvements millage, which is the city taxpayer levy that funds all sorts of park maintenance needs across the park system. So everything from replacing pathways to building new buildings or renovating existing buildings, maintaining our pools, ice rinks, etc., playgrounds. It also funds the stewardship of the natural areas throughout the park system. So as you can see, as I just mentioned, NAP is part of the Parks and Recreation Department, which is a very diverse department offering so many different amenities to the community. The Parks Department is home to all our pools and ice rinks, the liveries, golf courses, all the mowing and maintenance needs for soccer fields, baseball fields. It has our neighborhood parks and all the park planning associated with those. And it has the farmers market, and then we have lots of rentals. So we are but one effort in a huge diverse array of amenities and efforts that happens within the city to make sure that everyone has a wonderful parks and rec system. But specifically, NAP's mission is to protect and restore Ann Arbor's natural areas and foster an environmental ethic within the community. So let's break that apart into its two parts. So what is it to protect and restore Ann Arbor's natural areas? That effectively means steward. These park systems are not just all mowed fields, they are natural communities, biodiverse natural communities that need a helping hand to ensure that they maintain their existing and potentially future levels of biodiversity. So that's what NAP does day in and day out, is work to protect and restore and enhance that ecological function of the natural communities within the park system. We also work to foster an environmental ethic within the community, and that is a piece that is woven into every aspect of what NAP does. So when we have a volunteer work day out in the parks where we're bringing people in to get sweaty and dirty with us and cut invasive shrubs, we're pairing that with a nature walk at the end, a guided nature walk, to help people stop and appreciate and contextualize the work that they just helped us accomplish in uplifting the total mission. We also try to create opportunities for folks that don't want to get sweaty and dirty with us in the field and just want to meet in a sheltered, covered, safe place, but learn about the work we do. So everything that we do tries to work toward building and deepening that conservation ethic or that relationship with the natural areas within our community. So here's Ann Arbor. This is the City of Ann Arbor Park System. We have 163 parks spanning 2,200 acres of land across the city. I can tell you, having interacted with a lot of different park systems in the United States of a similar budget and population size, that number is really high up there in terms of the number of parks serving the community. I think it's something around 90 or 92% of the community lives within a 10-minute walk of a park, so really high relative park service compared to other communities. And for those that don't do acres, 2,200 acres translates to, I think, about 1,400 football fields worth of area. So it's a lot of space to maintain. As I said, this includes everything: the pools, the ice rinks, the mowed fields, the ball fields, as well as the natural areas. So what you see highlighted in purple falls to NAP to steward and be responsible for on a day-to-day basis. So of that 2,200 acres of parkland, 1,400 acres, or 2/3 of it, is considered natural areas that falls to NAP to manage. That's about 1,000 football fields. So a huge responsibility, and not one that we take lightly. Inside that 1,400 acres of natural areas is also 50 miles of trails that we are responsible for maintaining and keeping open and available to the public. Why do we do this? I don't know if I need to tell the people in the room the answer to that question. You probably have your own reasons, but for me, I think of it as these are natural communities that support and sustain us. They are rare in many instances, high-quality ecosystems that deserve not to slide into disrepair. So it is our duty, there's a moral obligation on the part of the owner of these lands, which in our current form and context is the city of Ann Arbor, and we are responsible for making sure that they maintain a certain level of ecological quality. And then we also care because we want to make sure other people feel similarly, and we're empowering and deepening that understanding of the value of these natural areas and having them so close to home in an urban environment. It is not over there. It is not, I have to go to a national park to see a quality example of natural communities in action and their ecological function. It is right here in our own community and investing in those spaces. This is how I visualize the structure of NAP. I'm a visual learner, so everything we do at the end of the day feeds into supporting and uplifting the mission to protect and restore Ann Arbor's natural areas and foster an environmental ethic within the community. So at the base of it all is the voter-approved millage. We could not do this without the funding that the millage provides us. So this is where I exist. At the bottom of everything. I'm the administrator, so I help make sure that the budgets are getting advanced, they're balanced, everyone has the funding and support they need, the HR needs are met of the team, et cetera. And then also trying to, in the background, help secure and administer grants, strategic plans, et cetera. So that is the basis of it all. But really, I'd say the 4 pillars of NAP are stewardship and restoration, which is that day-to-day care for the natural areas and the trail system, ecological assessment and inventory, which is figuring out what are we responsible for caring for, what is out in the parks, volunteerism, and this is truly one of the most notable functions of NAP is the robust volunteer community that we have that supports and amplifies the work that we do. And then education and engagement. And then at the top, we have some cross-cutting programs that are truly a all-hands-on-deck affair at NAP. Everyone that works in their respective pillars drops those boundaries and moves upward to make sure that the totality of the mission can be completed by participating in these cross-cutting programs. So let me highlight each for a second here to explain a little bit more about what they do. So on the stewardship and restoration side, we have a stewardship supervisor at NAP that oversees a stewardship crew of about 6 that spend day in and day out pulling herbaceous invasives, cutting woody invasives, maintaining the trails, making sure that when we get a park or a resident submitting notice to us that we have a tree fallen over a trail and they can't get by it, they're out there as soon as they can, clearing that tree over the trail so that people can continue to enjoy the park. They're also participating in one of those cross-cutting programs, which is our burn program, which I'll talk about in a bit. So we could not do, they are the workforce, the workhorse of NAP that really makes sure that everything that needs to happen on the day-to-day basis gets done out there in the natural areas. Ecological assessment and inventory. We have a lot of biodiversity within the parks, but knowing what it is, where it is, and how it's changing over time is the responsibility of the ecological assessment and inventory supervisor, who has 2 field biologists working for them. They go out and they do animal surveys, which is breeding bird surveys, turtle surveys, frog and toad surveys, salamander surveys. This helps us understand where all these species are within the park system so that we can make sure we're stewarding the natural communities that they rely upon to make sure that their population levels can be maintained. We also do floristic quality assessments, which is essentially trying to understand how diverse a plant community is, and then how picky some plants are and where they're willing to thrive and not thrive. And another way that we assess ecological condition over time is through our photo monitoring program. So we have many, many, many photo monitoring points throughout the park system where we have volunteers going every single year to those points on a map and pointing their camera in a specific direction and taking pictures. And so this is Cherry Rock out at Bird Hills, and you can see, I can't remember, I want to say this is circa 1940. I could be wrong about that, but there's pretty substantial difference in ecological condition across time as the forest has regrown and been restored with NAP's helping hands. Volunteerism, as I said, I think this is really one of the most remarkable parts about NAP, but is truly a testament to the community in Ann Arbor. We have so much volunteer support. We average, I think, about 10,000 hours of volunteer support a year coming to help us do all the work that needs to get done in the parks. So building new trails, removing woody invasives, pulling herbaceous invasives, cleaning up trash, you name it. And that's just the stewardship side. But then we have all these hundreds of volunteers helping us over with our breeding bird surveys, our salamander studies. It really is a place and an environment, and this is a testament to the volunteer supervisor that oversees all these efforts and all of their staff. If you come to us with an idea, we really want to meet you where you're at. We want to make a volunteer opportunity available to you, so we really do the best we can with the resources we have available to meet your needs and meet our needs and create a volunteer environment that makes you want to keep coming back to us again and again. So that was volunteerism, but again, we have this second part of our mission statement to foster an environmental ethic within the community, and I'd say the education and engagement pillar champions that, while all of the pillars do that work to some extent, and it's woven into the fabric of NAP. Education and engagement helps amplify what our impact is and spread that to the community in a variety of different ways. So every year we're out at Buer Park in the Children's Wet Meadow doing a demonstration burn to show people the value of prescribed fire as an ecological management tool within the park system. We have crafts, K-8 programming that we do weekly, basically, and in partnership with CAN, Community Action Network. We lead nature walks for all ages, and we really just try to give opportunities for those that don't want to get scratched and dirty with us on our stewardship work days, an opportunity to engage with NAP's mission all the same. Okay, the first cross-cutting program is our burn program. This is a very flashy but effective aspect of NAP's work. You may have seen our burn trailer or prescribed fire signage when we're out there in the community doing this. We have been putting prescribed fire on the ground in the city park system for decades, and we've been doing it safely and effectively, and it is such an amazingly impactful land management tool. We're so grateful that we have earned the community's trust over those decades to use this tool. A lot of people can be concerned with seeing flames in the parks, in the city park system, but we do targeted mailings to all of the potential neighbors that may have a prescribed fire in their adjacent park or neighboring park in the coming year at the start of every year to make sure that we're doing as much outreach to make sure people understand the value of what we're doing and why we're doing it. We host burn public meetings where we give detailed information about the value of prescribed fire. And we do this so safely that we actually invite volunteers to come and do it with us. So every year we have an annual burn training, And so if you go through our day-long burn training, you are then put on a listserv or a text blast that'll let you know the morning of when we make the call, the weather's right, the conditions are right, we're going to go for this park, you'll get that text, and if you want to suit up with us, you can come put fire on the ground alongside us. And then I'll lump the last two together, our community presence and communications, which is effectively this. It's the opportunities that we have to just get out in the community, make NAP known, because we can get bogged down in the day-to-day responsibility of stewarding that 1,400 acres of land. It's hard to carve out time to get into the community, to report on what we're doing and share the success of our story. So when we're not here giving these presentations, another way to engage with the success stories of what we're doing is through NAP's newsletter. So if you're not a subscriber to that, I would encourage checking it out on NAP's website. How to get in touch with us? nap@a2gov.org. So if you're interested in volunteering, learning more, please do reach out. We want to hear from you and add you to our community of NAP supporters. So as I said at the beginning, the city is responsible for two really wonderful land conservation programs, NAP being one, and the other being the Open Space and Parkland Preservation Program, commonly known as the Greenbelt. So I'm going to jump into that. To talk about the Greenbelt, it's really important to contextualize the origin story of the Greenbelt. So here we are in the state of Michigan, the Great Lakes state, home to 1/3 of the Earth's fresh water. And Michigan is the second most diverse agricultural economy in the United States, second only to California. That's amazing. We have truly this wonderful ag economy, culture, heritage. And so in the early 2000s, we had community leaders looking at where Ann Arbor was situated within the context of Southeast Michigan. So you have Metro Detroit sprawling all around, and you have Ann Arbor clearly within the path of progress. If something wasn't done around that time, or leadership felt that if something was not done around that time, Ann Arbor risked losing some of the natural resources that guaranteed a future local agricultural economy, recreational open space surrounding the city, and more. So that thought was not a new thought. It was actually many planners from the early decades of Detroit's booming growth that envisioned a metro area that was buffered by what they called an emerald arc. It was going to be this haven of outdoor recreation space that people could seek on a day-to-day basis for day trips or weekend trips out to the natural communities surrounding Metro Detroit. And so these conversations in Ann Arbor aligned with visions that people had had many, many decades prior about what was the value of these agricultural and recreational resources surrounding Metro Detroit. So in the early 2000s, we looked at our city and we said, okay, we've got the city here and we've got all these rich natural resources, and now we want to put forth a program to the voters to consider that would protect the farmland that characterizes our agricultural heritage and supports the local food economy, a program that protects permanently green infrastructure that safeguards the city's drinking water, which is extracted from the Huron River, and then protecting natural open spaces that offer recreation and continued biodiversity. So, overwhelming voter support, 67% approval by the voters in 2003. They approved a 30-year 0.5 mil tax levy. A 30-year mil tax levy is a long timeline compared to most tax levies. So this was truly an understanding that permanent land protection surrounding the city of Ann Arbor was not going to happen in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. It was going to take a long time to realize the full totality of the vision of the Greenbelt. So the open space and parkland preservation millage was passed. It generates now, these numbers need to be updated, about 2-ish million a year. And that is divided into two purposes, earmarked for two purposes. We have a chunk going to, or 1/3 of the money going to parkland acquisition within the city. So if our Parks and Recreation Department or City Council or otherwise receives an application from a resident here in the city to consider for acquiring as parkland, these funds are what is used to acquire that property. And then 2/3 of the money, which is now about $1.4 million a year, goes toward a Greenbelt district surrounding the city of Ann Arbor. I'll get to the map of what that Greenbelt district looks like in a moment. When I say permanent land protection, or just land protection more broadly, it takes two primary forms. One comes to mind very easily. It's our parks. It's our city parks. It's the state parks that we go and recreate in. It's county parks. It's township parks. It is the municipally, the government-owned lands that we are responsible for stewarding and maintaining for public use. That is one form of land protection, and it's the one that's most common. It's the one that shows up on Google Maps. You open it up, and all that green, that's the public land. But there's this invisible tool, this invisible map that exists of private land protection. And that's what the Greenbelt program can also fund. It can fund the acquisition of public lands for public recreation, but it also primarily funds private land protection. Now, why private land protection? It ensures that the property is maintained in its current condition in perpetuity. And it's also cost effective. So why is it cost effective? When someone owns a piece of property, we can say they own a bundle of sticks. Each stick represents a right you have to that property. So if you remove some of the sticks, such as the right to subdivide, the right to develop, the right to mine or strip mine or extract certain subsurface minerals, you're effectively removing what's commonly referred to as the development rights. And then the owner, the private property owner, is maintaining ownership of a select bundle of rights, like the right to enjoy, the right to farm, the right to sell, etc. So the ones, they're going to retain the rights that do not threaten the condition of the property long term. So that's why it's cost effective. We are effectively removing a subset of rights, and instead of paying for the full price of the property, we're only paying for that subset of rights. So the city can make sure the same 100 acres is protected forever, but without owning the 100 acres and paying full price for it. So let's take an example. Let's say there's a farm outside the city of Ann Arbor, and these are all hypothetical numbers. They change all the time, year to year and parcel to parcel. But let's say there's a 100-acre farm outside the city of Ann Arbor, and if it were appraised today, it would be appraised at $10,000 an acre, which is $1 million farm. But what the Greenbelt program does is it gets another appraisal, and it says, if this farm could only ever be a farm, forever, what would the value be of that restricted property in the open market? And so the appraisal says, actually, if it could only ever be a farm, that farm's not worth $1 million. It's only worth $300,000. That's what a farmer would pay for it if they knew all they could do with it is farm. So the difference between them is that value of the conservation easement, which is the legal tool we use to remove development rights from the bundle of sticks. And so that was valued at $700,000. So the Greenbelt program is paying this private property owner $700,000, not $1 million, to permanently protect this farm in perpetuity. The landowner may choose to exclude an area around their existing home and barns so that they can add some infrastructure in the future to make sure that they can meet their farming business needs. But effectively, we would guarantee that 95 acres of land is not going to change in condition forever. So because we're not paying the full price tag associated with a property's value, we have seen over $83 million worth of property permanently protected by an investment of just shy of $29 million of city taxpayer funds. That is incredible leverage through grants and through that cost-effective conservation easement acquisition methodology. Here's the Greenbelt District. So back to the city of Ann Arbor. Here we are. Here's all our parks and our open spaces. This is publicly accessible land. And this is the Greenbelt District surrounding the city. It's this sort of odd square-shaped area. And this is circa 2000. This is what the protected lands around Ann Arbor looked like in the year 2000. And here we are today. Since 2003, the city of Ann Arbor and all of its other partners, which are townships, county, nonprofit land conservancies, and the federal funding agencies that we rely upon, have helped protect 7,600 acres of land surrounding the city of Ann Arbor. No, it does not look like a perfectly circular belt. That is one of the strong misnomers with the name of what we do. But in a highly fragmented environment, this is an impressive amount of land added to the map in just 20 years. When the program started, leaders believed that somewhere at the end of the 30-year millage, we might be able to reach 7,000 to 10,000 acres of protected land. And I'm happy to report that just 20 years in, we've already surpassed the floor and are headed to the ceiling. So, as I said, the majority of the work we do is private land protection acquiring conservation easements that permanently restricts private land. But we do also contribute money to establish more publicly accessible recreation spaces. So in all, we've done over 85 acquisitions. 68 of those are working farms. 8 of them are farms that source to local markets, like our own Ann Arbor's Farmers Market. If you go upstairs, I know that at least one of the Greenbelt farms is here today. Green Things Farms is permanently protected in partnership with the Greenbelt, and they're one of those 8 farms that sources to local markets. 7 new farmers have been able to, and this number is about to change and go up. 7 new farmers have been able to afford farmland because of the Greenbelt's work. Think about that. You have a 100-acre farm that was worth $1 million, and because it's now permanently protected, it's worth $300,000. The number one barrier for new and beginning farmers in the United States to successfully farming is affordable farmland, finding affordable farmland. And so what our program does is create 7,600 acres of potential affordable farmland opportunity within our community for that next generation of local food farmers. And then, as I said, we've done an excellent job of leveraging external funds. I think in all, about 54% of the program's funding to date has come from external sources, which is a goal of ours to leverage as much outside funding as possible to stretch and steward the city taxpayer dollars as best we can. So in terms of the ecological impact on the ground, we have protected over 28 miles of river, stream, and waterway frontage in the Greenbelt District, with almost 80% of that being in the Huron River watershed, feeding into that source water protection for the city where we get our drinking water. 7,600 acres of land contextualized in the larger Greenbelt District. The Greenbelt District is about 85,000 acres of space. So 7,600 acres actually isn't that much. It might be, I think, 13% of the available area. However, of that 7,600 acres, how much of that is agricultural land? And then how much of the 85,000 acres is agricultural land? It's actually that 25,000 acres of farmland exists in the Greenbelt, and we've protected almost 5,000 acres. So we're heading up toward 20% of the available farmland surrounding the city of Ann Arbor being permanently protected. We've helped establish many new public nature preserves with lots of trails, lots of woodlands protected, lots of wetlands protected, and a whole lot of carbon sequestration, or rather, not sequestration, mostly storage, if you think of it in a static term, within the Greenbelt that equates to over 750 million miles by an average gasoline-powered vehicle. So the Greenbelt operates continually from a strategic plan. And the last time we did our strategic planning was in 2019, and we heard 2 overwhelming pieces of feedback from the community when we held that process. They wanted us to double down on our investments in prioritizing water quality protection outcomes, and they wanted us to increase the number of affordable farmland purchasing opportunities for so many of the new and beginning farmers in the Ann Arbor community that are land insecure. So this is what we did with that information. We decided we wanted to establish a new real estate acquisition model, or rather one that had been used nationally, but not enough here in our own community. And that model is called buy, protect, sell. Buy, protect, sell. And what it is that instead of the city protecting a private property in partnership with a private property owner, the city actually goes out and buys a farm outright. So here's a 54-acre farm just north of town that the city actually purchased. And we held it on an interim basis, and we heard from all of the land insecure farmers in our community that their ideal acreage size that they're looking for, 200 acres is too big, 300 acres is too big, 100 acres is kind of too big to manage, even 50 acres. We see a lot of new and beginning farmers that want to plug into our local food system looking for 15 to 30 acres-ish of land. They can have a successful business off of that much ground. So we took a 54-acre farm that the city purchased and subdivided it into 2 farms, and then held a competitive RFP process where land insecure farmers from all over Michigan were eligible to apply to have their proposal selected to be the next owner of one of these 2 parcels. So I'm pleased to say we went through that process. We had applicants, great applications all around, and it was a very difficult decision, but the highest ranking mean that we now have 2 farmers that have been selected, and I'd say in the next 2 months we will likely close on the sales to those new and beginning farmers. And at the closing, those farmers will also be signing the conservation easements that permanently protect this land. So we have accomplished the primary goal of the Greenbelt to protect land, but also fulfilled these secondary and tertiary objectives of creating affordable land purchasing opportunities for farmers and investing in the local food economy. And then in terms of water quality protection, this is brand new news. I've never said this in a public presentation because we just had City Council's approval of this change 3 or 4 weeks ago now. So we amended the ordinance that governs the Greenbelt's work to change its boundaries. So as you saw, the Greenbelt district was sort of an odd-shaped square with a donut hole of the city in the middle. And what we've done now is we've squared off the Greenbelt district, which opens more opportunities to do work in Ypsilanti Township, which 20 years ago said that it was not interested in participating in the Greenbelt. So that's why it was squared off, because there was development taking place there. But now with this affordable farmland access model that we're utilizing, we're hearing that there are many farmers that want to serve both the Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor's farmers markets that are looking for purchasing opportunities north and south of Ypsilanti proper. So we expanded it to open the door to new affordable farmland purchasing opportunities. And then here's the really big change. We established what is known as the Greenbelt, and now we've established a Blue Belt. This outline you see here in blue all around is the Huron River watershed within Washtenaw County. And so our current portion of the Huron River watershed within the Greenbelt district was fairly limited. So this is where we could potentially do source water protection work that helped protect the city's drinking water at its drinking water intake. So we wanted to expand our opportunities for protecting natural areas and different types of land that directly contribute to downstream source water protection outcomes. So we've established the Blue Belt. We are still in the process of writing the rules for the Blue Belt and how to prioritize all the parcels that exist within it. But I would say within 6 months, or certainly by the end of this calendar year, 2024, we will launch the Blue Belt in earnest and start accepting applications from landowners and partners who wish to partner with us on green infrastructure protection projects that safeguard the city's drinking water. Okay, that's NAP and that's the Greenbelt, and looks like we have a little bit of time, and I'm happy to do Q&A until we get kicked out of the room. Yes?
I was very happy to see your educational part of your program and to see children in that program, because my feeling is we want to reach the younger people and educate them about ecology and what's good for our land. Mm-hmm. What is your priorities for working with the schools and younger children?
You know, that's a great question. We're really fortunate in Ann Arbor to have so many environmental education efforts already at play. We have Leslie Science and Nature Center that's doing a lot of wonderful work. They're going to have an Earth Day celebration there today as well, 1 to 4. And so they're a nonprofit leading environmental education. And then Ann Arbor Public Schools has the Freeman Environmental Education Center and 2 full-time environmental educators dedicated to helping with curriculum and getting out into the classrooms. 2 full-time environmental educators for the entire school system, I know, can stretch them very thin, but they are seeing thousands upon thousands of students coming through their doors every year. NAP's environmental education efforts are really about activating the parks. We want more people to go out and appreciate what parks are there. So we have a lot of park facilities, gazebos and whatnot that we can have a program in and get people out there and then walk them out to the park, or we can bring the park to them. You know, we do have a partnership with Community Action Network, which is a series of community centers and community programming. And our staff do go to Community Action Network to do after-school programming as well. And some of those community centers are adjacent to city parks where we can then take the kids out for a guided nature walk. So we do try to be mindful of not being duplicative of efforts. So if the public school system has their own curriculum and their own staff dedicated to it, we don't want to intervene in their existing efforts and plans of how to roll that out in their system. But we want to be good partners. We do partner with the Ann Arbor District Library on environmental education programming. We have a Diversity in the Outdoors speaker series where we bring someone in who has a really interesting perspective on recreation or ecology within the outdoors. We have a speaker forthcoming, I believe, or had a speaker on queer ecology, and then it was paired with, and that was a talk here at the downtown library that then was paired with a subsequent walk led by that speaker out in one of the city parks. So we want to get more people engaged with these natural areas and building and fostering appreciation for them. So that's kind of our lens through which we're approaching environmental ed. Yeah?
How do you balance the needs for developing natural areas for recreation with the preservation of the land? I was thinking about this because I saw that Barton was closed and like a giant swatch has been cut.
Yeah.
Have been cut through it, and I used to go there all the time, and it seemed like it was a fairly diverse ecosystem.
Yeah. Yep. So that is one of the most prominent and valued recreation resources in the wider community, which is the Border to Border Trail. Yeah. That's what's going through there. And so thankfully, for the most part, we have found that it was the NAP staff was out there for several instances working with the engineers and working with the contractors to delineate which trees needed to be removed. We were extremely selective. We did the best we could to avoid as much impact as possible. But you're right, there's that constant balance of, you know, these 3 trees, these nice maybe oaks do need to be removed so that we can have this high value recreation resource, this universally accessible recreation resource put in. So we are always balancing that. When it's within the 1,400 acres of natural area that NAP manages and it's NAP led, that's a project that's partnership between the city and county, has a lot of different people, But when it's strictly us leading the planning, we are likely going to be planning new trails that avoid our most sensitive ecosystems. And then we're also sometimes shutting down social trails. That's a huge part of it, is a lot of people get an idea that they want to establish a trail themselves, and just over time, enough wear and tear and enough community ideas that I want to go that way. We see a lot of social trails pop up, and a big part of what we do is actually try to shut those down, because maybe they're going through a sensitive area, and we need to make sure that that's not.
Do you have any tips for spotting trails that are social trails versus?
Honestly, they often start as deer paths, and so you just see that lighter touch, but it gives just a notion that we can go this way. But we actually, in our volunteer work days, sometimes remove a ton of invasive shrubs and pile them right at the front of that social trail just to create a natural barrier. And it'll, rot over time, or sometimes we post signage, but in general, people have been fairly responsive, unless it's a major one that we've spent years trying to shut down that we've yet to be successful with. Yeah. Cool.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, 100%.
I've seen those, and I think I've sometimes wandered onto them.
Yeah,
I
and
can get confused.
that makes total sense. We need to do better as a whole park system on trail signage and delineation.
Yeah.
It is
Sorry.
50, no, I think there's 90 miles of trails in the park system and 50 miles under NAP's management. There's no doubt that to be more welcoming and inclusive, you need to start at some of the basics, and that is trail legibility, markings, and guidance, and same with signage and entry points. So it's something we're well aware of, and we're working slowly on.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Just
100%.
questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think's gonna happen in 2033? When this program, when the millage stops, what's your plan, or is there any plan, or is there any thoughts what might happen at that point?
To date, there has not been any serious discussion on that. Just having passed the 20-year mark out of the 30, just having surpassed the floor and headed to the ceiling of what we originally envisioned would be possible with the Greenbelt program, we may make it to the 10,000 acre mark, which would effectively, based on what was said in 2003, mean mission accomplished. There is a perpetual legal liability associated with the work we're doing now. It's not that these lands are protected and we just trust that they're protected. Every single year, we have staff going out and monitoring these properties to make sure that the agreements are being upheld. And if any landowner were to violate the agreement, say, build a garage in the protected area, that would be means for enforcing the agreement and having them remove that garage. Maybe that happens amicably, maybe that is a lawsuit. So for every single one of those 85 acquisitions that we've done, we've set aside nearly $25,000 in an endowment fund to make sure that we have the long-term financial sustainability to enforce these agreements in perpetuity. So we're planning for the future. We're not planning for money to necessarily be there in the future, but we're setting it aside now so that we can uphold our responsibility long-term. I would say closer to, 5 more years from now, et cetera, we might hear more talk of what does council, the mayor, et cetera, feel about the program and where it's gone, and then reassess. We said 10,000 acres. We delivered 10,000 acres, hopefully, by the program's end. And now do we feel that is mission accomplished, or do we need to amend our goal, move the goalpost a little, and then extend the program further? Or are we going to call it a success for what it was? We don't know yet. Okay. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.